All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is your 5th and final Inventor tutorial video. So let's open up Autodesk Inventor. You already know to be patient. Close the pop-up window, and we're going to start a new part. So remember, we're going to go to New, Standard IPT, that's our part, and we're going to create it. We're going to click on Create a 2D Sketch. We're going to choose the XY plane. And we're going to start with our rectangle like we always do. Every project's always going to start with a rectangle. Right click, OK. Let's dimension this rectangle to be 7 by 7. So my dimensioning tool, instead of 1.3, I'm going to make it 7. Green check. Zoom out. Now let's make the height 7. Green check. Zoom out. So here's my 7 by 7 rectangle, and I just want to make something really simple in here. Let's just do a rectangle, and we'll make a couple cutouts in this rectangle. Right click, okay. So I'm going to use my spline, and I'm going to give my rectangle a curvy edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my spline, and I'm just going to kind of overlap it with my rectangle and kind of an irregular pattern. Green check. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off the parts of the spline and the rectangle that intersect. So I'm going to trim this off, and I'm going to click Finish Sketch just so I can see what that looks like. Zoom out. Oh, I missed a part of my trim there. So while I'm out of my sketch, I'm going to go ahead and save it. Go to the eye, Save As. Make sure you're in your user drive. Let's call this Sample Part 3. Sample Part number 3. Save. And now it's saved. I can see up here that it says Sample Part number 3. That's how I know it's saved. I'm going to double click on Sketch 1. And now I'm back in my sketch. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to trim off the rest of that rectangle. So that's a really kind of funky looking way to make a zigzag like a cutout pattern on the top of my rectangle. Let me show you another way some of you guys might like that you could make a more regular pattern. So I'm actually going to undo all of that. Oh, I can't undo anymore. Okay, I'm going to go back into my sketch, and I'll just show you the other way on the other side. So I'm going to take a circle, and I'm going to put my circle right on the line. Okay, you can zoom in, put your yellow dot right on the line, and I'm going to make a circle, and then I'm going to come over here, make another circle until they overlap. I'm going to make another circle, and I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep making overlapping circles, and then you'll see that I can trim off the circles, and that'll make a different kind of a cutout pattern. Okay, so I'm done with my circle tool. Right click, okay. Now I want to zoom in on the bottom, so I'm going to use my hand to slide my paper up. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to trim off the bottom of these circles and the bottom of the rectangle. Now you have to be really careful, because see how I zoomed in really far? When I'm zoomed out, I can't really see that these are overlapped, but if I zoom in, they're overlapped, and that's really going to confuse Inventor when we go to extrude this. So you have to trim off all of those parts that are overlapped. Make sure that everything's connected. Like over here, see more overlap? I have to make sure we trim all this off. This is really important for when we go to extrude. I'm going to zoom out and use my hand to recenter everything again. It's really important that we find all those overlaps, because if we don't find those overlaps, we're going to have lots of trouble extruding. If you ever have a sketch that won't extrude for you, it's probably because you're missing some overlap. So see this mess right here? This little stinky triangle right there? If I didn't delete that and trim it out, Inventor would have trouble extruding. See this overlap? Got to trim that off, or else I won't be able to do my extrusion later. Now this doesn't have an overlap, so that's fine. I can leave that there. Let's look at this overlap over here. Get rid of that. Now this might seem like a lot of work, but it's going to make a really cool kind of edge on our paper. It's a little bit nicer of an edge than the top. Okay, so I think everything's trimmed. Yep, that's not an overlap. Looks like there might be a little bit of an overlap over here, so I'm going to do like a super zoom in. No, I can't see any overlap, so we're probably good. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is trim off that top piece, so we have another cutout in the top. Now I'm going to use a line, and I'm just going to make like a zigzag cutout on the side. Right click, okay. Maybe I want to make it go up further. Remember, your green dot is how you connect those lines, okay? So I'm going to cut out that zigzag, and now I'm going to trim off these extra parts. Okay. And we're just doing this to practice. Trim, trim. Excellent. Nice, nice. So we've got all different kinds of edges on this rectangle. I'm going to finish the sketch now. So this is our sample part 3. Let's save it again. Remember, we already did the save as, so now all we need to do is click the disk. And now I'm going to extrude my little rectangle. You can go ahead and leave it 1 inch. That's fine. So let's leave it 1 inch. And now let's kind of swirl him around, see what he looks like. Okay. Pretty goofy looking shape, but that's okay. So all we need to do is practice some more of our tools. Click your home button so we can turn him back right side up, and then click your front screen. We're going to add a big hole in the middle. You guys remember how to add a hole? Click on your hole tool. Let's add a 1 inch hole in the middle. And we're not worried about the reference points because we're just playing around here. Nothing too critical. Okay, so let's save our work. This is sample part 3. Now what we really want to learn how to do today, because none of that was new, what we really want to learn how to do today is make an orthographic drawing. And this is really important. After you have your part finished, okay, this is our part, we need to make orthographic drawings. These are our blueprints so we can make our prototypes. So after our part is here, we're going to go to the orange eye, and we're going to go to New, Standard IDW. This Standard IDW, do you see how there's a front view, a right view, and a top view? And it shows you over here on the side, a front view, a right view, a top view, and that's the isometric. This is our orthographic. I told you guys we won't have to do these by hand. The computer's going to do them for us. So click Create and give it a minute. Be patient. It's going to load our orthographic drawing paper. Now the first thing we have to do is change a couple of these settings. This is super important. So if you guys want to write these steps down, you can write them down in your notes, and that way you'll remember them every day. Because we're going to be making lots of orthographics, and if you don't do these steps first, it's not going to print right. So after you open your Standard IDW, you have to come over here to your browser and right-click on Sheet 1. You're going to get this pop-up menu. You're going to go down to Edit Sheet. You're going to click on that. Where it says Size, you're going to change the size C to size A. And this is really super important that you do this every time, because otherwise it's not going to print right. Click OK. Notice how the paper kind of changed sizes. Also, all of this stuff down here in the bottom, we're going to delete that. That's over here, this ANSI large. You see this in the browser? We're going to right click on that and we're going to delete it. Okay, see how all this mess went away? Now we have more room for our orthographic drawing. So now that our paper's set up, we can place our base. So we come up here to base and we click on base, and it's going to tell us we're using sample part 3. Well, that's good. That's the one we want. And the scale is going to be 1:1. We always want the scale to be 1:1. If you mess with the scale, it's not going to give you a true size, and you won't be able to make your prototypes. So make sure your scale is 1:1. And you can see this is the front view. So now remember, the front view goes in the bottom left-hand corner. Click. Drag your mouse to the right. We're going to do the right-hand view. Click. Drag your mouse up and over to the top view. Click. Now these are the 3 views from an orthographic. The front view is down here, the right view is over here, and the top view is up here. So we have all 3 of them. Now again, this part's really important or you're going to get confused. After you do your click, 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 you have to do a right click. So click the right mouse button and hit create. When you hit create, all of the different features and lines are going to show up. You see all these dotted lines? These are all your hidden lines from all the cutouts and the hole and everything else. Okay? Now this is a pretty good orthographic. I would bet we couldn't draw one this well by hand. At least I couldn't anyway. So the computer makes us a really good orthographic, and now we just have to add some dimensions. At our ribbon up at the top, we're going to go to the annotate ribbon. Under the annotate ribbon, we can add dimensions. Now, I do want you to try to follow the dimensioning guidelines as best you can. So we're going to click on the dimensioning tool, and we're going to start with dimensioning the front face. On the front face, I can dimension the height. So I can click on that side and pull it out. And I can dimension, oh, why did it do that? Undo. Undo. So let's try to dimension that height one more time. Click on your dimension, click on your height, and pull it out. So our little shape is actually about 4.5 inches tall. Click OK. Now let's dimension that circle. When we dimension the circle, I'm just going to click on the outside of it, and I'm going to pull my mouse up, and it's showing me the diameter. The diameter is 1/2 inch. That makes sense, or I'm sorry, that's the radius. The radius is 1/2 inch. Click OK. And that makes sense because the diameter is 1 inch. Okay, so this symbol right here, that circle with a slash through it, it's actually a theta symbol. It's telling me that that's the measure of the diameter. So the diameter of that circle is 1 inch. Notice how I'm putting all of my measurements between views. I'm not putting any measurements off here to the left or down here on the bottom. All my measurements are going to stay where I can see them. So we measured the height. We measured the circle. We would like to try and measure the width, but because I didn't leave a solid side on the width, it's going to be really hard for us to measure the width, but I'm going to show you a trick. With your dimensioning tool, you can click on this straight line, and you can click on this straight line. Pull your mouse down. See how it's telling me 4.3? That's how wide my shape is. So I do have a width. I have a height. I know the diameter of that circle. I'm missing depth. So I'm going to dimension depth on my top view. The depth is how thick it is. So right there, I'm going to pull it out. It's 1 inch thick. And remember, that's how far we extruded it. So we kind of already knew it was 1 inch thick. Over here on the right view, I can't see very much. We don't dimension hidden lines. If I wanted to, I could dimension the height, but that would be duplicating this measurement over here. I don't want to duplicate measurements, so I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to cancel. And this is really all I need to dimension. I'm not going to be super strict on your dimensions as long as you follow the basic guidelines. Keep your dimensions in between your views. Don't dimension hidden lines. Dimension the circle where I can see it. And don't over dimension. If you have so many dimensions that the whole picture looks cluttered and I can't really see it anyway, you're not doing anybody any good. So kind of keep it simple. Less is more sometimes. And now that we're finished, all we need to do is save our work. Let's go to the eye. Save as. Sample part number 3, orthographic. Make sure you're in your user drive. Sample part number 3, orthographic. Save. And then we're going to print it. Go to the I, print. Make sure you send it to 4250. Okay? 4250. We're always going to print to 4250. And you're finished with Inventor tutorial number 5. I really want to make sure you guys remember how we changed the sheet though, so I'm going to review that one more time. To change the sheet size when you first start in orthographic, you have to go right click on sheet 1, edit sheet, make sure it's size A, okay? And then there were some more words down here. It said ANSI large. We deleted that because otherwise there was a bunch of stuff down here and we wouldn't have room for all our drawings. So if you need to rewatch the beginning of this video, go back and rewatch it so you remember everything because this is super important. And you guys are finished. Nice work.